When you feel forgotten at 70, try this one thing and wait for the magic to happen. At an age when most people think you should be resting and enjoying retirement, many are quietly facing a deep, hard-to-name feeling, the sense of being forgotten. It is subtle, lingering, and weighs heavy on the heart. What is even more concerning is that this feeling is not just limited to a few individuals. It is becoming a silent reality in many families and communities today. In today's video, I am going to share with you a very special tip. This is not some preachy life lesson. It is a deeply human approach, grounded in real psychological understanding, especially for those in the later stages of life. Many people have tried this and have been genuinely surprised by the incredible and positive changes they experienced. So stay with me, because in just a few minutes, you might find a new doorway leading you out of this feeling of invisibility and into a life filled with love, connection, and meaning. Before we begin, leave a comment below with a positive affirmation, something like a personal commitment to attract goodness into your life. For example, you can write, "I deserve to be loved and valued at any age," or share whatever positive intention resonates with you. And do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you will not miss any other content like this. Let us build a space full of positive energy to grow and be truly happy together. So, what does it really feel like to be forgotten at 70? Let us dig a little deeper into this haunting yet rarely spoken of emotional experience. At 70, you may not be as busy as you once were, but that does not mean you no longer need to be heard, seen, or recognized as an important part of someone's life. And then, when the little things, a phone call, an invitation to go for a walk, a simple look of concern, start to fade away, you begin to feel pushed aside. No one says it out loud, but the silence speaks volumes. That is when you realize you are still here, but no one really sees you anymore. I understand that feeling, as if you are in a crowded room, yet still feel completely alone. You are still having meals with your family. You still hear the grandchildren playing, but somehow you feel like a faint shadow, unneeded and unnoticed. And the most painful part is not that no one is physically around, but that those who are no longer connect with you from the heart like they used to. Slowly, you start to wonder, do I still matter? The first instinct is usually to try harder. You push yourself to maintain connections, trying every possible way to stay relevant. You send messages, make phone calls, cook meals, help around the house, just to feel acknowledged. But ironically, the more you try, the more the silence on the other side becomes painfully obvious. They are not intentionally cold. Sometimes they just no longer pay attention, and that indifference cuts the deepest. Over time, your mindset changes. You stop expecting too much. You start to hold back your opinions, stop sharing how you feel. You realize that even if you speak, no one is really listening, so you go quiet. That silence is not because you have nothing to say. It is because you do not know if anyone wants to hear it anymore. The feeling of being left behind does not come all at once. It slowly builds through each ignored moment, every dismissed suggestion, every meal where you sit, as if you are the only one still holding on to the past. But then comes a moment where you have to stop and ask yourself, am I still trying in the right direction? Or am I just wasting energy on something that no longer gives back? At this age, you have lived long enough to know being physically present does not always mean being truly valued. You show up for every meal, attend every gathering, always ready to listen, help, support. But in return, you are taken for granted. And after it happens over and over, you start to realize people no longer cherish your presence, not because you lack value, but because you have become too available. Now, I'm not saying you should cut people off or turn cold, but here is a psychological truth many of us forget. People only start to truly appreciate something when they sense it might be gone. When you are always there, your presence becomes expected. It becomes routine. But if you learn to step back just enough, it creates space, and that space, it awakens awareness. Stepping back does not mean giving up. It means taking control. You stop being the one who always calls first, texts first, worries first. You give others the chance to step toward you, or not. But in that intentional silence, something remarkable begins to happen. Your absence becomes noticeable, felt, and maybe even missed. When you are no longer present out of obligation, you stop being the person who has to be there and become someone people choose to have around. And that is when you become visible again, not through indifferent eyes, but through conscious awareness. People begin to remember you, think about you, even miss you, not because you pressured them, but because you gave them space to feel your absence. You do not have to disappear to be appreciated, but you do need to pause at the right time and in the right way, so that your presence does not lose its meaning. In that pause, not only do others reevaluate their connection with you, but you also get time to listen inward and realize your value is not based on how often you show up, but on how deeply you are remembered when you do not. 1. Set new boundaries. There is one thing many people at 70 were never taught, or perhaps never even considered. You have the right to set boundaries, not because you are selfish, but because you deserve self-respect. For decades, you have been a parent, a grandparent, someone who has always given without asking anything in return. From youth to old age, you have been the one willing to sacrifice, to take the short end of the stick so others could be at peace. But that same willingness, over time, has blurred the line between love and obligation. Have you ever noticed how often you say yes when deep down you are exhausted? Or how many times you stayed silent instead of saying no? Have you been labeled difficult just for expressing a personal opinion? These are not small things. They are signs that your boundaries are being crossed, and worse, that you are not speaking up to defend them. But now, you absolutely can, and need to, redraw those lines clearly. What is acceptable and what is not. I am not saying you should create conflict. In fact, this change can be gentle, yet firm. You can say no to things that drain you without needing to apologize. You can walk away from conversations that make you feel dismissed or judged without having to explain. And most importantly, you can begin to demand respect, not through fancy words, but through your actions, by being direct, silent when needed, and stepping back when it is time. Even more importantly, setting boundaries is how you protect your own mental health. When you are constantly bending over backward to please everyone, you are trading your inner peace for surface-level relationships. But when you choose to stop, when you choose to say no to what hurts you, you are not just preserving your energy, you are setting an example. You are teaching others that you are someone who deserves to be treated with kindness. One reason many older adults avoid setting boundaries is the fear of offending others, of making loved ones upset, of becoming hard to be around. But think about it. If someone only likes you when you always agree, always stay quiet, do they really value you? True respect does not come from being easy to please. It comes from having a spine, and you absolutely deserve to be respected, not just as someone with years of wisdom and experience, but as a whole, complex person whose voice still matters. 2. Reconnect selectively. After you have re-established your boundaries, the next step is to take a closer look at the circle of relationships around you. Not everyone who has been part of your life still deserves a front row seat in it. Some relationships make you feel light, understood, and valued. Others constantly make you feel like you need to prove yourself, to perform, just to be accepted. And now is the time to be clear-eyed about who should stay and who it might be time to let go. I know this is not easy. Some of these people have been around your whole life, friends since childhood, family who have always been there. But sometimes, even those closest to us are the ones who make us feel the most invisible. They call only when they need something. They ask how you are just to be polite. They listen, but never really hear. And at this age, you no longer have the energy to keep maintaining connections that only exist out of habit. or empty obligation. You have every right to ask yourself, how do I feel after each conversation? If the answer is heavy, pressured, or disappointed, that is a clear sign the relationship is no longer serving your emotional or mental well-being. On the other hand, a short call that makes you laugh, someone you rarely see but who always makes you feel like yourself, those are the connections worth keeping, no matter how few. Reconnecting selectively does not always mean cutting people off. Sometimes, it just means lessening the frequency, changing the way you respond, or simply lowering your expectations. You do not need to explain why you are pulling away. You only need to feel a sense of relief whenever you think of that person. That is what reconnection on new terms looks like. Freedom, authenticity, no pressure, no guilt. At 70, the relationships you keep should be the ones that energize you, allow you to be yourself, and make you feel heard without needing to explain. Because by now, you have lived enough to know. A few real, heartfelt relationships are always worth more than 100 shallow ones. And at this stage in life, you deserve to be surrounded by people who make you feel like you matter, not people who make you question your worth. 3. Shift the focus. Back to yourself. Sometimes the emptiness we feel does not come from the lack of people around us, but from the sense that we no longer know who we are. When the roles you once held start to fade, no longer the one who must be there, no longer the one everyone turns to. You may feel like your heart is just a wide open space, but in that space, there is an opportunity, not to go find someone else to fill it, but to return to yourself. How long has it been since you did something simply because you enjoyed it? Not because someone asked, not to help out, not out of duty, just because you wanted to. A small class, a short trip, a song that brings back memories of your youth. These little things may seem minor, but they hold the power to bring your spirit back to life. It is not about changing your life, but about feeling alive again. Shifting the focus from others back to yourself is not selfish, it is fairness. When you stop chasing approval from outside, you start making space to listen to the quiet dreams inside. Maybe it is the desire to create, to learn something new, to try something you used to think was only for the young. And let me be clear, no one is ever too old to start something that brings them joy. Age only measures how long you have lived. It does not measure how deeply you can still feel. When you do what you love, you reawaken that feeling of being alive in the truest sense. You no longer wait for someone to invite you or join you. You begin with your own desire, and that is more than enough to start a brand new journey. The beautiful thing is, once you shift your focus back to yourself, your relationship with time begins to change too. Instead of seeing each day as something to get through, you start to see it as a chance to discover yourself, a little more each time. You stop being just an observer in life, and start becoming the main character in your own story. Whether you decide to learn flower arranging, write your memoirs, take up photography, or simply sit in silence, listening to the morning birds, the activity does not matter as much as the feeling of reconnecting with yourself. Not the version of you who always worried about others, but the one who lives in sync with your own rhythm, passions, and essence. And you will realize, each day, you can be your truest self without needing any reason. 4. Take care of your mental health. When people talk about self-care, most think of eating well, staying active, or getting enough sleep. But there is another part that is just as important. Maybe even more subtle and harder to measure, but it deeply affects your quality of life, your mental health. And at this stage in life, mental health does not just need to be maintained, it needs to be nurtured as an essential part of your everyday living. You may have believed that feeling sad, lonely, or empty is simply part of getting older, that you are supposed to learn to endure it, to accept it as the price of aging. But the truth is, no one should have to carry those emotions alone. You do not need to become good at toughing it out. You need spaces where you are heard, where you can share, and where healing begins from within. Joining meditation classes, yoga sessions, or senior activity groups is not just something young people do. These are opportunities for you to reconnect with yourself. When you meditate, you learn to observe your emotions without getting swept away. When you practice yoga, you are not just moving your body, you are learning how to breathe properly, slow down, and be fully present in each moment. These simple things can be powerful medicine for the spirit, more natural and sustainable than any pill. Also, being part of a local community, one filled with people from your generation with similar experiences, can give you a strong sense of belonging. In those spaces, you do not need to explain too much. Sometimes just a glance or a smile is enough to feel understood. And that kind of understanding can heal you more deeply than any advice. You do not need to speak a lot or share anything you are not ready to. Sometimes it is just walking together in a park, sitting quietly in a meditation room, or listening to soft instrumental music with others. That is all it takes to quiet your heart and restore your energy. Caring for your mental well-being does not require you to change your whole life. All it takes is setting aside a small part of each day for yourself. A quiet space where you can breathe, reflect, and remind yourself your feelings matter, and inner peace is something you can build, one moment at a time, simply by choosing it. When you begin to shift your inner world, everything around you will slowly start to shift too. Relationships, interactions, even old habits, all of it begins to reflect your change. First, you will notice the way people treat you starts to change. When you stop reacting the same way, when you stop trying to please everyone, people will be forced to adjust. They will no longer see you as someone who can be taken for granted, always ready to meet their needs. They will begin to see you with more respect, because they will sense the clear boundaries you have drawn. But this is not always easy. Some people may be surprised, some may push back. They may get frustrated when they realize they no longer have the same control over you, but you do not need to step back. You do not have to explain. Your change speaks for itself, and others will either adjust or naturally fall away from your orbit. What is powerful is that you will no longer need to decide who stays and who goes. People will show you. Your shift in energy will naturally fade out shallow connections, while those who care deeply will respond differently, not because you ask them to, but because they sense that you are not the same. They know that unless they grow with you, they may lose you. And if they are not willing to grow, your silence will say enough. You will also notice something else. When you stop chasing attention, your quiet presence becomes more visible than ever. You are no longer the one being forgotten. You become someone others take notice of, someone they think about, someone they respect. You do not have to be loud to matter. Your calm, steady presence becomes impossible to ignore, even when you say nothing at all. Sometimes, just one small change is enough to make you feel loved again, instead of forgotten. You see, feeling invisible at 70 is not the end of the story. It can be the start of something new. If you choose to care for yourself, reconnect with life, and allow yourself to live meaningfully, everything begins to shift. The simple practice I shared today is not just an action, it is a message. You still have so much value, so much to give, and so much to receive. Your body may move a little slower, but your soul and your heart can stay vibrant every single day. If you found this message helpful, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can continue joining us on this journey of healing and inspiration. And leave a positive comment below, something that affirms your worth, like, "I am still living a meaningful life," or anything you want to send out into the world. Thank you for staying with me until the very end, because even that choice alone shows that you are choosing to live more fully, one day at a time. See you in the next video.